First of all, I'm super happy that all of you are here. This is fantastic. It's great to have you with us. I hope you enjoy some of the remembrances, not only of myself, but I'll introduce a special guest as well. So let's open with the word of prayer. Dear God, we give you thanks for the ability we have during this busy season to pause and remember how you have been at work in this congregation for 45, 46 years. We thank you for guiding the people who first thought about a new mission start here in Bonita Springs, North Naples, and thank you for putting that into their hearts so that they were able to bring it to completion. I thank you for the time that Sherry and I have had the opportunity to be here for working on 26 years now. It's been a complete and utter honor and joy. Thank you for the children for this morning. The fact that they only know one pastor, some of their parents only know one pastor. And I thank you for having the opportunity to be there for generations in this congregation. Bless our time together as we remember funny things, sad things, and the ways in which you touch our lives in everything. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. So a hearty welcome to everybody. I was not here from the very beginning. I know that's hard for you to imagine. So when dinosaurs walked the earth, they kept looking at this space and they were like, Pastor, yeah, you have to start a church here. That is not how it happened. Thankfully, the church was a brainstorm by people from Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Naples, Florida. They were the first to kind of realize that there was a gap between Naples and Fort Myers, and they needed to have a mission church somewhere in between. So they got together and created the dream of Christus Victor, and I am honored also to be able to tell you we have the only two charter members that are still here with us are here today, and David Hengel would like to share some of those first 15-year stories that only he and the Hansons and a very chosen few people can think back that far. So David, why don't you come up and share some things about the early years. So David Hengel.
Thank you, Pastor. Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, I have to tell you, I had to write this down. This gray matter is now 81 years old, and sometimes it lapses here and there. So, but I'm going to be reading some of my notes, and I'm glad to see everybody here. And I am very, very proud to say that, again, I'm David Hengel, and my wife Sylvia back there, and we are charter members of Christus Victor Lutheran Church, along with our 5 children. We were kind of known as the family that takes up the whole pew in those days. And interestingly enough, Christus Victor Lutheran Church was organized in the mid-70s. Pastor John Yost and his wife Brenda moved from North Carolina to Naples, and they were assigned to Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Naples, and Pastor John was an associate pastor. Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Naples was interested in helping start a new congregation in Bonita Springs. Pastor John was volunteered, kind of like the military, you will do this. Anyway, Pastor John was volunteered to start the process. After meeting in several different locations in Bonita Springs, Father Foley, the priest at St. Leo's Catholic Church, agreed to let Christus Victor Lutheran Church worship at St. Leo's Catholic Church. It was an amazing process. When early Mass was dismissed from St. Leo's, the congregation would leave the church through the back door. And Christus Victor Lutheran worshipers would enter through the front door. And when service was done, we would leave through the back door, and the next Mass, people from St. Leo's would come in the front one. And we did this until Christus Victor Lutheran Church was able to move into our building, which we are sitting in at this point in time. This was the original church. And it took a lot of patience and a lot of work and so forth to get it. But we were so thankful for St. Leo's. We met with them in their church all the time up until we moved in this one. And some of the members of St. Leo's, and this is interesting, were not happy with the arrangement. And we really didn't know the meaning. We should have understood a little bit, but as time went on, it was discovered the reason some of the people were unhappy was they did not like having to leave church, St. Leo's, through the back door. It wasn't that they didn't like the Lutherans worshiping with them. And anyway, many wonderful friendships were formed. And for many years, and my sister-in-law was one of them, for many years, after Christus Victor opened, a lot of the members of St. Leo's would also attend Christus Victor service and vice versa. We would go to attend Catholic service, the Mass. So it was really a great time. When it came time to have the first service at the Christus Victor Lutheran building, a new saga began. Some of you have heard this story. Interesting one. Anyway, there was an inspector from Collier County building department that had agreed to be at our building site on Saturday, the day prior to the first service at Christus Victor Lutheran Church. He was here to do the final inspection so that we could come to this building the following day and worship. And there were several things that had to be done. Some of the subcontractors were working on it and so forth. Well, what happened was everything was completed except the building contractor had not excavated enough soil from the water holding space that we were required to have for the final inspection. And the inspection could not pass. The building contractor, and I can't remember who it was anymore, was called, and this was Saturday, and the company owner said they would not send out a machine or an operator on Saturday because it would cost the company $800 in overtime expenses, and the water storage area would be completed the next week. So there could not be a church service the next day on Sunday. I owned a large John Deere tractor with a front end loader. So I went home and got my machine and completed the project, and Collier County building inspector okayed the job, and we had the first service in the building, this building here, the next day on Sunday. What I did is, they had said $800 in overtime. They would not do it. So I billed the building contractor for $800. And they said they would not pay me. Well, the church owed them $16,000 for a final payment. And it was agreed that they did not get the final payment until I was paid. The contractor finally paid me so that they could get their final payment, and then I donated the $800 to Christus Victor Lutheran Church. I guess it goes back to don't mess with us. The church, for many years, I was the youth director along with my wife and some of the other parents that would help out and so forth. And we had a lot of things, people working with our youth group. We had a very large youth group. Sometimes we had 20 or more in here at one time, from 6th grade on through graduation to basically when out of high school. And the youth group received many things from the congregation. We had our own complete set of camping equipment and went on overnight campouts with parents, and also had a 16mm movie projector, and also had sleepovers at our church for our youth group, and sometimes invited youth groups from Naples churches, and sometimes had beach parties. Each year, many of the youth would travel to Bible camp in North Carolina on charter buses. And sometimes we, as adults, would ride along on the buses as chaperones. There was one trip that I rode from here. Someone rode from Naples to here. I rode from here to Sarasota, I believe, and Sylvia followed behind us, and then someone else rode for a while. So that's how we chaperoned the charter buses that went to North Carolina. As the congregation grew, we looked to the future to build a larger church and now worship in the beautiful new building next door. It is strange how things change. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there were a large number of young families in the church. And so that's why the youth groups in Sunday school were very large. And as myself and Sylvia grow old, and now our children are actually from 48 to 58, and their grandchildren are now from 7 to 32. So things change a little bit. And let's see, I have to look where I was. Sorry about that. And many of our great-grandchildren are also here. And I said this morning to my two little granddaughters that are with us today that I said, you know, Pastor Tom baptized you. And they said, oh, really? And I said, yes. But anyway, and they love Sunday school here very much. And they love coming to church with us. But anyway, we have been so wonderfully blessed to have Pastor Tom and his beautiful family with us for so many years. I think you all will agree that the future will be a sad time when the Slater family leaves us, but also a happy time that we have had them in our fold for so many wonderful times. And we will always have warm memories of the Slater family and the love they have shared with us. And now, I think it is the time for Pastor Tom to fill in the cracks that I may have missed in the history of our beautiful Christus Victor Lutheran Church. Thank you, and God bless you.
I thought he was going to walk off with my notes, and my gray matter isn't there either.
What was the date the first service was held there? And how large or how small was the congregation?
I think it was September 14th, 76, something like that. Here?
Here?
Yeah, 78.
I don't remember the date.
I'd say 78. I think
Probably.
78.
Yeah, they started in 77.
77. Organization Sunday is March 6, 1977. And they had a service here for that. Dedication of the church was March 8, 1981, of this church.
Thank you.
Numbers really fluctuate here, as you've all seen in season. It was one of the things when we arrived. We came in July of, sorry, Jerry, I need to stay still. July of 1996. There was 64 people in church. This, as David said, was the church right here. So if you look behind you, that was the altar area. Okay. This whole inside of this building was red. So there were red walls with felt behind you by the altar. Red carpet, red chairs. I mean, it just really stuck out. But these were the only windows right there, and there was a window over here. It was super dark, and the lights, we didn't have the lights as nice as the light bulbs are in here, so it couldn't light up the place. But one of the things I'll always remember, the first Sunday we came in, David is correct. You can see some of the youth group pictures. When they were here and helping with the youth group, we had a large youth contingent here at Christus Victor. Pastor Yost did a fantastic job. He was just a great mission developer, really built things up. There was some turmoil after Pastor Yost left, and a lot of those young families left after that, and so it had been a process of trying to regain the momentum that was built during those times. So when we came, my 3 children almost doubled Sunday school. So Dawn's daughter, Jacqueline, at that time, our secretary, had 3 kids, and Dawn also had a friend that had 2 kids, and the Englers came a little bit after that.
The rules.
And the rules were here still with that, and Jessica and Sean. So there were hardly any kids, and I remember the first Sunday, I'm standing up there and I'm looking out, 64 people, my 3 kids, and I'm like, God, why did you call me to Christus Victor Lutheran Church? I don't know if Linda will remember, but there were 3 old men that sat in the very front row. Some of you have heard this story. And they would sit there, and really nice guys, all 3 of them, and they would sit there through the service until the sermon. And I got up to preach the sermon. They all leaned on the middle guy, and the 3 of them fell asleep every Sunday. So that's my first Sunday, and I start in, let us pray. By the time I look up, they're out. And it happened every Sunday. So that was just one of the funny stories. I'm like, I'm not sure what God was thinking, but I know there's a plan, and there was, and we're blessed by that. Before I got here, they had already come up with a building committee to look into building a church. A man named Carl Ebersberger was the chair of that building committee. He was a retired colonel in the Army, and he wanted to build a Quonset hut for the church. And that's all he talked about at every meeting. I don't know why we just don't build one of those round Quonset huts and we can worship there. I'm like, ooh, this is going to be tough. Actually, as I look over and I look through some of the building committee pictures, Ken Engler, Jenny's husband, was on that. We are the only 2 left living from the building committee for next door. But they were looking into the possibilities, but there was a contingent that was very much against Christus Victor building that church. Because we came so small in the summertime, and really we were building the church for the snowbirds at that point. And so we're like, okay, well, let's see how this all works out the first year. And one of them was actually the financial secretary at that time, so trying to get her to see the vision for the future of this area. You all have to understand, if you've come to Naples, Bonita Springs, anytime in the last 15 years, you will not remember that Bonita Springs used to be a small fishing village. That's all it was. Why do you think Dick and Linda moved here? Okay, all he wanted to do was fish, and then it just grew up around him. So that was, most of our members lived in trailer parks. So there were a lot of trailer parks in Bonita and North Naples, and a lot of our members were living in that. So that was the kind of group of people that we were trying to work through and say, God has something else in store. There's something more. So we worshiped, and let's try and give you a little bit. So the altar was up there. We had the chairs here. The choir, Ken, okay? The choir was up here. We actually had risers going up. Probably every Sunday, one of the choir members fell on the risers because you had to step up. So that was always a hard thing. Then we had an electronic organ that was over here that probably shouldn't even have been in an ice skating or roller skating rink kind of place. I'll go off on that. One of the funniest stories was, and I'll try and tie that in later, but when Paul Todd first came here, he walked in off of the street. His hair is down to here, and he said, I was wondering if I'd be able to play a concert for you. I came down from Minnesota, and the secretary's like, I don't think so. You'll have to talk with Pastor Tom. So he came in and, I just want to play a concert. No one will let me play a concert. So I said, what do you play? And he goes, oh, I play the organ. So I go, well, I said, can you play that organ? And he goes, sure. So he goes, let me warm up a little bit. So I went back into my office, secretary's back in her office. All of a sudden, this sound is coming out of this room, and we're like, what is that? And we come in, and he's just killing this organ. I mean, it's just beautiful. It sounds wonderful. So, yes, you can do a concert here at Christus Victor. Of course, the main beneficiary of that was Linda Hansen, who the very first concert that Paul Todd gave, he asked her to come up front. Well, then he sat down on her lap. Next, I thought Linda would just burst at the seams. So I'll get into more of that. But anyway, that was really cool. That was one of the first things that happened there. So I just wanted to go over a little bit of kind of each room. So that was what was here. This right here, which is why I left the door open, that was the Narthex. So now just kind of imagine if I'm standing there, the acolyte would stand there, and many times it was Linda Rule's children that were the acolytes at that time, and one other person, and now people coming through. It was pretty crammed because there was also shelving along both sides of the wall over there. So that was it. So you really didn't get a chance to really welcome people as much as what we have next door, which is the reason why that Narthex is so big and airy and open, and because this just didn't open itself up to really welcoming people in a good way. But that was the Narthex. There's a door right there that now leads into the storeroom. The first part of that was a classroom and library. Okay, that's where the first library was. Then you actually had sliding glass doors, and you went out through the sliding glass doors, and at that point there was nothing. But when we built the new church, the porte-cochere that is right there, the porte-cochere started at the sliding glass doors and went all the way to the door on this side, the north door here, to enter the church. So there was a porte-cochere going straight, not straight across, but like diagonal across to that door. That was the first one. Always had trouble with that. The first office here, which is now a Sunday school room, became our first Interns Office and the Financial Secretary's office. The middle office which is now Sunday school room, was the secretary, the treasurer, and there was one other person that did something else with the books that I'm not really sure what she did, but there were 3 desks in that little teeny room there. Then my first office was the very first door as you came in. The long hallway, the 2 old bathrooms were the only bathrooms in the entire church. Okay, so that was all that was there. Part of the issues we had early on was the church was on septic tank. So if we had a big Sunday, we couldn't get the people out quick enough and tried not to let them go out that door because the septic tank would overflow out that door. So we were really happy when we hooked up to city water and sewer. That was a big day because there was always a problem with the septic tank, and then the driveway would keep collapsing in. We'd fill in the driveway. So that was that. Over here in this section, there used to be, and this wasn't long ago, you might remember, there were rolling doors there, rolling wooden doors. Oh, sorry. I get excited. And those were original doors, and they would come down so that we could do worship. Well, by the first winter after we got here, we could no longer fit the people in this section. So we had to open those doors, but that was the adult Sunday school room as well. So we'd have 2 tables set up for the adult Sunday school room. We'd have chairs set up, have to open all those doors as soon as Sunday school was over so that we could seat enough people. As time went on, we had to cancel adult Sunday school because we had to have that entire thing filled with chairs. And we used to put the chair racks on the back wall, and then people would sit on the chair racks and on the sink area. So that was finally the time when I went up to, and she wouldn't be upset if I said, Jean Steinmeier was our financial secretary, and she was one of the last ones that she did not want the building. And I said, Jean, look at what's happening. We are turning people away now because we don't have enough chairs. And she goes, I never thought we'd ever get to be this big, and I am all in favor of building a building. So we finally, and she was pretty influential too. So. Very, very nice lady. So it really started to go full bore now. We have to start looking. The first season I was here, we had a retired pastor that helped us out through season. We tried to tell the retired pastor that this is a one-time thing because we were hoping to get into the intern program. That started the very next when with July. So that would have started that next July. I hadn't been here quite just a year I had been here. And so when he came back the second year, he thought he was just going to be able to come right back in with a job, but we didn't have a job because now we had an intern. But he helped me through the first year, helped through Lent and all that time because it was a big change. From 64 people to 200 and something people, 300 people, and then by the time we hit Easter, at that point it could be 600 people for Easter. So, you know, you could see, I'm like, wow, I've never experienced anything like this before. I came from a church in inner city Jacksonville. And, you know, you think that in Florida, every church has associate members and snowbirds. We had one snowbird in Jacksonville. And I can remember being up front, and I would actually physically see her walk in one Sunday, and I would stop the church service and say, Joy Pick just walked in from up north. Welcome, Joy. And, you know, and then you come here and go, it triples in, you know, during seasons. So that was a big difference as far as I had ever seen before. If you ever had issues with my ministry, you can please look at Linda Hansen. She served on my call committee 26 years ago. And it was just, it was a really different church at that time. You know, we were struggling. We were trying to build back up again. You know, we didn't want the heyday just to be in the past. We wanted something more, a vision to go further, and the congregation stepped up and did that. One of the neatest little stories, maybe some of you have heard, but you didn't know what was meant by it if someone just made a passing comment. Every Sunday when we were in this church, there, like I said, there was a window where that window is right now, and a cardinal would come and throw itself at that window. Only during worship. It was the only time the bird ever came. And so the first time, again, I'm up preaching, the three guys are sound asleep in the front. And I'm preaching and I'm looking, and not one set of eyes is looking at me. I'm like, what is happening? So I turn where all their eyes are, and here's this bird throwing itself against the window. And I'm like, I can't compete with that. You know, that's just... So that bird continued to do that, and the bird became, actually became one of our passwords. Cardinal was the password, that's where it came from. And I would have funeral services, and when a funeral on, let's just say it was a Tuesday, and that bird would throw itself against the window on a Tuesday, and you could see the family going, now I know that God is here. Because, the bird became an answer to prayer for people. So much so that when we moved next door, that was everybody's biggest concern. What's going to happen to the cardinal? And our staff, we tried to open up the doors and windows to see if the cardinal wanted to come in instead of hurting itself. Never came in, just wanted to hit the window. So we went in our first service next door, and we're going through the service, and the stained glass window where the screen is, the bird threw itself against the stained glass window, and the whole congregation gasped. I mean, it was just really, and that was it. We never saw the bird again. So. The bird was like, you're moving on, and more power to you, but this interior of the church is not red. So I don't want anything to do with that. I think that had something going on. So we went through the offices, secretary, overflow. So we had all of this set up. Now this wall right here was the exterior wall. Okay, so there's nothing beyond that. There was no doors right there. It was a solid wall. If there were doors there, you would walk out to the maintenance shed. That's where we kept the lawnmower and paint and everything else. Beyond that was a trailer, a single wide trailer with a porch that was built around it, and that's where our Sunday school classes met. The trailer came from Shepherd of the Glades Lutheran Church. They had condemned the trailer at Shepherd of the Glades. And they figured, let's give it to Christus Victor. So we used that trailer, and I mean, till the day this building was built. One of the things was everyone wanted to get rid of that trailer. I said, we can't get rid of the trailer because we have no place for the kids to meet. Let's at least keep it until the last minute that we open up the church, and then we can finally get rid of it. I don't know how many windows Dick replaced and put plexiglass up, because it also became a place for Sterling Oaks youth to enjoy at nighttime. And so there were a lot of then were you guys here the day that the bees were underneath the trailer? Oh. So it might have been over the summer. We walk out, you couldn't even go to your car because there was a steady stream of bees. So we called this pest person, and he came and he put on the white suit with the thing and everything, and we're like, what is this guy doing? He crawls underneath the trailer, but he had to get out all his equipment. He opens up his pickup truck door, and a dead animal falls out of the pickup. He goes, oh, that was from the last job. Throws the dead animal. Okay, so he sprays, and the bees are going crazy. I don't know how many times he was stung, but the suit he was wearing was not a good suit. But the bees left. They all went in his truck, and he just took it away. So, let's see, single wide trailer. Okay, so the trailer was just back here. We made do, walls would bow out, floors, but we kept it going so that the youth could have a place. So beyond this way, was all pine trees. Pine trees, we didn't have any of the parking back there or anything. It was pine trees and sugar sand. So the first day that Gisela Heine and her husband came to church, Easter Sunday, he decided, he was in a very nice car, he was going to pull between two trees, that way no one could park next to him, and come to church. So he parks between the two trees, they come in to worship. Well, worship's over, Easter Sunday, 4 services, and I can hear this car going, and he's gunning the car, and the car is going like this down into the sugar sand. It was all the way to his trunk. Gisela's crying, and she's like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. And so they called the tow truck. Tow truck came, and the tow truck driver's like, I can't do this because he's parked between the two trees, the car could hit a tree. And so Gisela said, Pastor will drive the car out of the tree. Never knew the woman, but got behind the wheel, drove it out, they got their car back, they drove away, happy Easter, we moved on from. So everything beyond here was all sugar sand. That's all it was, pine trees and sugar sand. And the movie that I have shows some of that, because that was one of the biggest jobs they had to do, was cut down all of those. One of the stories I like to share, it's such a big part of who we are now, is Victory Park. So Victory Park, obviously, the ground was there, but there was nothing there. And outside of maybe Dick Hansen and John Kaiser, who was our property person, no one had even ventured back there. I mean, it was old Florida. You probably didn't want to walk through the palmettos, and who knows what was there. So my first week, I'm just kind of walking around the church, and I see a lawnmower coming out through the middle of these palmetto bushes. And I'm like, what? So I walk down, I go, John, what are you doing? And he goes, I cut a swatch around one thing around the lake back there just to keep it open so, you know, in case anyone needs to get back there. I said, oh, there's a lake back there? And he goes, oh yeah, he goes, hop on. So jump on the back of the lawnmower, you know, and so we get back there, and I'll never forget, now you have to, the lake was 1/3 the size that it was a pond. Not a lake at that point. So here's this little body of water, and I just went, oh, this is gonna be really special. We need to build the church, we need to get the church done, but people are gonna come to this church because of this area. And he's going, you're nuts. He goes, no one's gonna come back into this area. But when they started the building process, one of the things that had to happen was we had to raise the church up 3 feet, something like that. And they were going to charge us a lot of money to raise the church up. And one of the options was they could dig out the pond and triple the size of the pond and use that dirt to build up the church. And I went, kill 2 birds, 2 cardinals with 1 stone. And so they came through with all the heavy equipment, which was just great. That was really good. And they tripled the size of the lake. They used the fill for the church. So now that created an opening. So we used to have something called Hot Dog Thursdays, where that was one of the things that the interns had no choice, that they would help on Hot Dog Thursdays. And we'd go out there with machetes and clippers, and we would spend until we got sick from the sun. We would go out there and cut down all the palmettos that we could get, you know, just to make a pathway, and then we'd come in and have hot dogs. That was my big thing at that point. And if some of the youth group were here at that time, we'd always go to Circle K and get hot dogs at the Circle K. So that was something that we did. That was a lot of fun. So the building project starts in.
That was before Burger King was in town, right?
Thank you, Vince. So let me tell you history about Burger King, okay? So there, you know where Shikani's funeral home is. So there's Walgreens, then what's the name of the place? Shopping, Best of Everything. And that next building used to be a Burger King. And it was so convenient because it was on my way. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it was just perfect. And if you remember, Lisa Flynn was one of our interns. So I had every intern their first day, I would take them to Burger King. So I get Lisa's there, and you know, I said, Lisa, this is what we do. We go to Burger King for our first lunch. She goes, well, my mom is here. I said, that's fine, she can come too. So the 3 of us drive to Burger King, and there's a note on the door. And I went, what? And I go up, thank you for your patronage these past 20 years. This Burger King is closed. I turned around, and she goes, are you all right? I go, no, they closed my Burger King. I can't I mean, I would go through the drive-through and they go, "Hi, Pastor Tom," and don't even ask me what I wanted because they knew already and they would just, and she goes, "How do you do that?" I go, "That I've been coming here quite a bit at that point." That was before Sherry worked here. Okay, so, now she regulates what I eat. So we end up going to the next Burger King. Now it's up by a Rural King. Okay, so we drive there and I go, no one's going to know me, So we drive in and I say, I'd like a number 8 with sweet tea, and the lady inside on the thing goes, "Is that you, Pastor Tom? We weren't sure whether you would find us or not." And Lisa and her mother are going, "Oh my gosh," and I'm sure the mother's like, "What did my daughter get herself?" So, thanks, Vince. That was good. So that's the Burger King story. So we get the building committee. Everyone's charged up now. We're ready to move forward with the building project. Things are going really well. Congregation fully supporting that. The only unfortunate thing of the entire process was we probably had the worst developer builder that you could ever have. It was a company that was a design build company, and the problem with a design build company is no one watches them, so they could do whatever they wanted to do. We went through 5 on-site superintendents. That one, we actually had a meeting here. It turned into utter chaos, and I felt like the person was treated poorly by us, and so he was staying at the hotel on Bonita Beach Road. I actually went to the hotel room and I said, "I'm really sorry." I said, "We are so frustrated with this building." The man started crying and he said, "I hate working for this company." He goes, "The only reason I still work for this company is because of my family." And he goes, "If I could get another job, I would." He goes, "You should have fired us a long time ago." And I'm like, this is a supervisor of the company. And so we always were doing stuff to try and redo what they were hoping to get past us. They put the frame up on from the church octagon all the way back where the bathrooms are and stuff, and now I lost what, trusses. The trusses went like this, so they were all warped. The company came to put the 4x8 sheets of plywood on so they could put the roof on. They put 2 pieces of plywood on the building, and the guy came in and he goes, "I can't put any more plywood on because it doesn't match up," because the things were like this, and so they couldn't nail it in. So we had to make a decision, rip all of the trusses back off of the building. So their big thing was, "You don't understand, that's going to put you back 4 months. And I said, "Well, I'd rather it put us back 4 months than in 10 years from now, the whole ceiling caves in and we're in deep trouble." And so we made the decision to have it all ripped down. Then we came to find out that it was actually the owner's brother who provided the trusses, and they were probably in the back somewhere just getting bad. So I said, "We have Raymond Building Supplies right here. They came with brand new trusses, were perfect." So I remember sitting with the lawyers of the developer, and the only thing I could even say was, if I would have built a sandbox for my children, I wouldn't have used those trusses. I mean, that's how bad they were. So that's just one example. It was back during a time when building material was being stolen from jobs. So plywood was stolen from the job because of hurricanes. Okay, people, they couldn't get plywood, so where do you, on a construction site? So that was when AJ was here as an intern, and I said, "AJ, we're gonna spend the night at the church." And he's like, "What?" And I said, "We're gonna find out who's stealing the plywood." So we set up the camera that I did this video on, which sat on my shoulder. Do you remember the video camera? You put the VHS tape in it, and like it weighed 40 pounds, and you put it on your shoulder. So we had that set up, and we were in the library, and we were watching movies and just had the video running. And unfortunately, that night, no one came to steal it. But Doc has done something similar when we set up cameras because our mail was being stolen. Same kind of thing there. Easter sunrise. So right now we have our Easter sunrise in Victory Park because Victory Park is done. Well, we didn't used to have Easter sunrise in Victory Park. We had it in downtown Bonita Springs. So I used to go the week before Easter and put up a sign that went across Old 41 that we're having this Easter sunrise service. The Hansons and Harvey and Jean Fleming would be there at 5:30, 6 in the morning, and we'd have set up all of our speakers and tape decks and whatever other ridiculous technology we had at that time. And I would be on the band shell stage, and we would open it up. You had to bring your own lawn chairs, and everything was kind of working out. We were still a small town, so that was okay. But then things began to change a little bit. So we were there one Easter morning. It was a time change Easter again, and we're sitting there, and all of the sprinklers for the parking lot. I've never seen people at 6 in the morning run so fast in all my life. Everyone was getting soaked by the sprinklers. I go, you think the city's trying to tell us something? And so I think we tried like 1 or 2 more years there, and then it became something where they didn't really want us to be there anymore because it's not fair to all the other churches, and we got into that kind of thing. One thing going off on David, the camaraderie of all the different types of religions, Episcopal Church, the Presbyterian Church, the Catholic Church, the Methodist Church. We had a tighter bond when I got here than the Lutheran pastors did. We got together more often. I got to meet Pastor Foley. We actually had other pastors come because the Catholic Church was so nice to let us use their building. We had other worshiping communities use this building as well. So we opened ourselves up for that kind of thing. I had more fun at that group than I did with our own group at that point. Another building story. So next door, every day something else happened. So the builder supervisor calls us over. So it's, again, AJ, Dick Carline was the treasurer at that time, and myself. And we walk into the church, and he goes, now, I know you had figured it out where you wanted the organ box. So not the organ itself, but the box with all of the pipes. And it was supposed to go on the back wall underneath the air conditioning duct. So I go, what? Yeah, that's where we wanted it. We voted on that. That's where it's going to. And he goes, yeah, it's not going to go there. I said, what do you mean it's not going to go there? He goes, well, we didn't measure it right. And the air conditioning duct will come down too far. And so I go, well, we can't put it on the back wall because we were going to have, right now there's windows back there. One of them was not going to be there so that this thing could be right up against the back wall. So he goes, you have 15 minutes to decide where you want that organ to go. So I saw AJ and Dick Carline just went like this. They walked back, and I'm like, oh no. And he goes, it can either go up front by where the baptismal font is, or it can go over on the side where it eventually was. At that point, no one in the choir, well, there were a couple that no one wanted to be up front, and so they wanted to make sure that they were on the side. They didn't want to be in the back either, so that worked out good. So we moved the box with the pipes where it is now, but the organ itself was in the middle of the congregation. Do you remember that, Ken and Lil? So the organ was right in the middle. So as you walk down the aisle, and people did this, so Joyce is playing. It wasn't Joyce at the time. You're doing a great job, Joyce, while she's playing the organ. Well, our organist at that time did not appreciate that. So he would stop and then argue with the person for touching it. You know, and I'm just like, go! So Monday would come in, he was going to quit. So we had that was Mark Olson was the intern then. So every Monday we taught the organist out of quitting because he was touched. So I said, the congregation just loves you. That's why they do, you know, whatever. So that was a funny story too. Then for years, no one liked the organ being where it was. And it was actually, this is true, I was not sleeping one night, which is pretty typical, and I started thinking how we could move that organ. Now, if you have ever looked inside of the organ, the connections, the electrical connections into this organ are unbelievable. So it goes up into the attic, and I knew where the line came out of the attic, and so the intern and I, we asked, would you like the organ to be put where it is now? Yes, but it'll cost so much, $800. I should have followed your advice. You know, well, pay me $800, and we moved the organ in one day. So we snaked all the wires through up to the attic through another hole. We moved the organ over, and now the organist, no one touched him. So that worked out good. And the organ was next to the choir because the choir was in the middle of the sanctuary too, right behind the organ. So that just a little story there, which we did not want to happen, but it did. Our decorating committee, sometimes those are the worst committees that you can possibly serve on. We had a great decorating committee, from the color of the chairs to the lights that are in the sanctuary, to every decision we made was a unanimous decision, and I'm still happy with everything that was done there. I want to tell you the story of the stained glass person. Again, we're all over here. We actually had a camera that would shine on the door because a lot of homeless people and vagrants would come to the church at that time trying to get into the churches morning, noon, and night. And so this person comes in, goes to the secretary, and Laura comes into my office and she goes, Pastor, there's a homeless man here and I can't understand a word he's saying. So I say, okay. So he comes into my office and he goes, glass, glass. I said, glass? Huh? Over there. I said, the new church? Yeah, he's from Germany. Yeah. And he goes, glass. I go, do you do glass? And stained glass. I went, oh, you do stained glass. So we were in the process. We had 3 bids of stained glass windows. And so I had a whole list of these are the ones that I wanted. And what this, if you look at it, it's the whole life of Jesus. So if my whole theory on that was if someone comes to this church, they don't like to sing the songs, they don't like to participate in worship, they can't stand me preaching, if they just look at the windows, you get the whole story of Jesus. So. And if you don't know that, thank you, because that means you were paying attention. So I actually had scripture readings and everything else, and I gave this to this man, and I said, you know, this is what we're building off of, and we've already got 3 bids. Well, afterwards by Linda, there are the original sketches of the stained glass that he did. Regardless, he won the bid. And at that time, there was a lot of, I don't know if you've gone into churches and they have these modern blob stained glass windows that yet, I mean, maybe it's Jesus' face, but it's just a blue blob, you know, with the halo over it or something. And I was like, no. And so this guy came with these. Ken and his first wife were one of the ones that donated one of the windows. He had his first business was in Cape Coral. He invited all of the people that bought stained glass windows to come to his office. We had a wine and cheese party at his office, and he showed each person where their stained glass window, how that was coming and how it was looking. He was the best contractor we worked with the entire time. The guy, he was phenomenal. He is now a world-renowned, this was his first church. He used our stained glass windows. He's now has offices in London, New York City, all over, and he's just this really well-known stained glass person that does churches and all over the place. But we gave him his first shot. Yep. What's that?
His name.
Charlie was his name. Charlie Engels. So, what? Man, I just pulled that. How old was he? I would say at that time he was probably, really young, my age. No, maybe like 35 or something like that at that point. So, I don't know where he is or what he's doing now. But that was a positive story of that. What?
Can you repeat the story of the cross that we had?
That was my next one. Yep, thank you, Yvonne. So, Easter cross. We were also known for our Easter cross. So we used to have a blue Christus Victor Lutheran Church, big, long, heavy wooden sign that went out where our sign is right now. And in front of that, every Easter, we had a wooden cross that would go, and Harvey and Jean would put Easter lilies on this cross, and people would actually stop and take pictures of the Easter cross. And unfortunately, when we built this building, now all of a sudden, David was talking about the inspectors and everybody else. We have our own stories about Carl and I camping out at the door of the inspector so they couldn't get into their office without us being there. And so they said we cannot have the cross out front of the sign anymore. So we have our sign because of the right-of-way. So the sign is within an inch of what we're able to do right now, and we had the cross on the other side, and they were like, you can't do it. So then we moved the cross right in front of this building. We did that for a year or so, but it wasn't the same. And people would actually stop in and go, I'm glad you did the cross, but we always loved driving by and seeing that Easter cross. So, it was something that we were known for within the community, for sure. And it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And those lilies are still somewhere. Maybe they're by the reeds. So that was a really neat thing, too. I know we're getting close. Are there any questions? I want to make sure that if you...
Can you tell us more about Victory Park after it got going?
Okay, so one of the things that we decided with Victory Park is that we wanted to keep it as natural as possible, and so we would not do anything. We wanted Victory Park to be self-sustaining, so they started the Victory Park Fund, and people would donate to that, and then when people would pass away or and they would want to leave a bequest, a lot of the first people that did after that went to Victory Park. So I think the first thing was we just had a stone walkway where the paved walkway is now around the lake. That was one. Then a family donated the Stations of the Cross. And so that we really like to do that. Well, Lutheran churches don't really have the Stations of the Cross, but I thought that would be a really neat thing. And it turned into something even more than I ever anticipated. So we had that done. Then the Scouts, one of their Eagle Scout project was to build the boardwalk. So they built the initial boardwalk that went out through the middle. And if you're here during the summertime, thank goodness they built it the way they did, because that water comes right up to the boardwalk, because it's a little valley there that the water goes to the lake, and when the lake fills up, the water comes out into the parking lot. Then someone donated the altar, and they wanted to have an outdoor worship center. So initially we just brought chairs out. Dick Hansen would help me on Easter Sunday morning, and we'd set up these chairs, and we would just have it, we made the area for the worship, but now people donated the altar, they donated the benches, they donated where the baptismal font is. Then someone donated one of the gazebos with the statue of Jesus in it. Then we wanted to do something for just spreading of the ashes. So someone donated that. We built that out of the pavers, and someone just donated the statue that's there. Then the Phillips family was the one that donated the big gazebo for our fellowship events, because that's what Carol was always into, is getting the people together. So they donated that. So it's just been a progress. The church has not spent a dime on Victory Park. It's all been self-sustaining. So now people that have their ashes spread there, that's what kind of creates the funds that we can upkeep Victory Park. We can trim Victory Park, but one of the biggest things in building the church was the preserve area. And so Victory Park, you'll see signs, we had to preserve 3/4 of Victory Park. And initially they wanted us to set aside like one whole half of it. And we're like, no, we're not planning on touching any of the stuff around the edges. So can't we just use the edges as the preserve area? That took forever, but we finally got that okay. So that's just been a labor of love to see that from 4 people out there with little clippers clipping the palmettos to the big trucks coming through to make the lake bigger. Then someone donated the fountains that we've had in there. So it's, and now really Victory Park is used virtually every day. People from the community, the people next door use it all the time.
I love it.
Yeah, it's just fantastic.
We picked it there periodically.
Yeah. And during COVID, office people
Right.
would actually drive here and come and have their lunches outside. So it's been nice for that. Yeah, just a couple little quick things, and if you have questions, but the intern program has been a huge thing for our congregation, for me personally. Every one of them have felt like my child, and your grandchild maybe, or your child, it's just, and to be able to see their life beyond here has just been so heartwarming. I stay in touch with virtually all of them, get phone calls periodically, almost every week from one or the other of them. Been able to preach at their installations when they're at churches throughout the United States, which has been really neat. The next thing we did was also Congregational Trips. That was another person that came in off of the street, and we started doing congregational trips to Israel, China, Footsteps of Paul, Rome, and the Caribbean, and it's just been really neat. We went to Alaska 2 years ago, so it's been a neat kind of way to get the congregation together there too. Then we built this office and council meeting room, and when they finished this, and this was in the middle of the downturn in the economy, and I think I had gotten up in front of the congregation, maybe the closest would remember, probably 3 times and said, "Are you sure we want to continue with this project?" Because everything, the foreclosure rate in our area was huge. And one person, I remember all of you, but Ann Schroed, "Oh, Pastor, you just have to have faith." I'm like, "Oh." And she was right. We're going to do it. And we did. And when this was done, they ripped down that porte-cochere that used to go on a diagonal, put this across, made it right. For the very first time, when you pull into the campus, this is the way it always should have looked. So it's been so neat to be able to see the transformation through all of these years. And because of all of you making those kind of things happen, that now here's this facility that it's a beautiful facility. We're one of the really top churches in the Florida Bahamas Synod, and people look to us for some of the responses that we give. They look to us for the giving that we do. World Hunger, that started with something that I remember that the first year they were talking about this no bake sale, and I went, I just don't understand even what you're talking about. And they'd hand out the little aprons, and when I could see what was brought in by just one simple little thing, and we are probably, well, not probably, we are within the top 5, if not the top 2 or 3 in the entire state of Florida with our giving to World Hunger. So we've had people from Chicago come to our congregation, Fund for Leaders. We have people, one of our former interns will come because of the giving that this congregation gives. We're known for that. And that's really important too. Some neat stories. The bells and the statue of Jesus came from Redeemer Lutheran Church. They closed in Fort Myers, and they had a big sale, and there was something happening here, and no one could go to their sale. So I went on Monday after their sale and just walked in. How's everything going? Oh, we really thought maybe someone would want these bells, or someone would want some of this stuff. And I said, well, there's someone that just came in my office on Sunday and said they wanted to give something musical. And so I handed them a check for the bells. We brought the bells here, and at that same time, they said, because you're bringing this to the church? I said, yeah, why don't you take all of this? And then that's where the statue of Jesus came in, and Greg Olson redid that to make it beautiful. And it's, just kind of neat where some of the things that we might look at and just take for granted came from somewhere else as well. So I'm really proud with what we do outreach-wise. Once we started moving forward with opening up, trying to get people to step forward to do things. And I want to thank Jerry. Synod Parish Deacon Program has been an amazing thing. As I look back, it would be one of my highlights, the Intern Program and the Synod Parish Deacon Program, where lay people are stepping forward and getting things done in the congregation. I just think it's amazing. Every one of us are gifted in some way, and we need to use those gifts to continue to build this church. I have no fear of what's going to happen. As the kids say, well, you're the best pastor we've ever had, but we've only had you. That's in their little video today. But you're going to have the next best pastor when I leave. And this church is good because of who I'm looking at. And that's what's going to keep this church going. So please step up and make things and continue to make things happen, because this is a great place. So thank you very much for coming. I'm going to leave that there. If anyone would like to watch that video, it's worth it. If any of you know some of the personalities, so Brian is the first intern, and he and I did the first part to a Mission Impossible theme. Then we had the building committee to different songs from the time, and you have to know people like Carl Ebersberger, how we ever got him to do, that was we did Men in Black, and then with Carl and the building committee we did Mission Impossible, and so it's on the video, so anytime anyone wants to come in and see it, you can do that. So thank you.
Thank you.